Hunger Games: Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins. Read to you by Ashley. Chapter 1. I clamped the flask between my hands, even though the warmth from the tea has long since leached into the frozen air. My muscles are clenched tight against the cold. If a pack of wild dogs were to appear at this moment, the odds of scaling a tree before they attacked are not in my favor. I should get up, move around, and work the stiffness from my limbs, but instead I sit, as motionless as a rock beneath me, while the dawn begins to lighten the woods. I can't fight the sun. I can only watch helplessly as it drags me into a day that I have been dreading for months. By noon they'll all be at my new house in the Victor's village. The reporters, the camera crews, even Effie Tinkler, my old escorter, will have made their way to District 12 from the capital. I wonder if Effie will be still wearing the silly pink wig, or if she'll be wearing some unnatural colour, especially for the Victor's tour. There will be others waiting too, a staff to cater my every needs on the long train trip, a prep team to beautify me for the public appearances, my stylist and friend, Sinia, who designed the gorgeous outfits that first made the audience take notice of me in the Hunger Games. If it was up to me, I would try to forget the Hunger Games entirely, never speak of them, pretend they were nothing but a bad dream. But the Victor's tour made that impossible. Strategically placed almost midway between the annual games, it is the capital's way of keeping horror fresh and immediate. Not only are we in the districts forced to remember the iron grip of the capital's power each year, we are forced to celebrate it, and this year I am one of the stars of the show. I will have to travel from district to district to stand before the cheering crowds who secretly loathed me, to look down into the faces of the families whose children I've killed. The sun persists in rising, so I make myself stand. All of my joints complain, and my left leg has been asleep for so long that it takes several minutes of placing to bring the feeling back into it. I've been in the woods for 3 hours, but as I have made no real attempt at hunting, I have nothing to show for it. It doesn't matter for my mum and little sister, Prim, anymore. They can afford to buy butcher meat in the town, although none of us like it any better than fresh game. But my best friend Gail and his family will have to be depending on today's haul, and I can't let them down. I start the 1.5-hour trek in and take to cover out the snare lines. Back when we were at school, we had time in the afternoons to check the lines and hunt and gather, and still get back to trade in town. But now that Gail has gone to work in the coal mines, and I have nothing to do all day, I've taken over the job. By this time, Gail will have clocked in at the mines, taken the stomach-churning elevator ride into the depths of the earth, and be pounding away at the coal streams. I know what it's like down there. Every year in school, as a part of our training, my classes would tour the mines. When I was little, it was just unpleasant. The claustrophobic tunnels, foul air, suffocating darkness all on sides. But after my father and several other miners were killed in an explosion, I could barely force myself onto the elevator. The annual trip became an enormous source of anxiety. Twice I made myself so anticipated of it that my mother kept me home because she thought I was sick with the flu. I think of Gail, who only really alive in the woods, with the fresh air and sunlight and clean flowering water. I couldn't know how he stands it. Well, yes I do. He stands it because it's the only way he can feed his mother and 2 younger brothers and sisters. And here I am with the buckets of money, far more than enough to feed both of our families now, and he won't take a single coin. It's even harder for him to let me bring in the meat, although he would surely have kept my mother and Prim supplied if I had been killed in the games. I tell him he's doing me a favour, that it drives me nuts to sit around here all day. Even so, I never dropped off the game while he was at home, which is easier since he works 12 hours a day. The only time I really get to see Gail now is on Sundays, when we meet up in the woods to hunt together. It's still the best day of the week, but it's not like how it used to be before, when we could tell each other anything. The games had spoiled even that. I keep hoping that time passes will regain the ease between us, but part of me knew it was fertile. There was no going back. I get a good haul from the traps, 8 rabbits and 2 squirrels, a beaver that swam in the wire contraption Gale designed himself. He was something of a whiz with the snares, rigging them to bend and snarl so they pull the killings out of each of the predators, balancing logs on the delicate stick triggers, weaving incapable baskets to capture fish. As I go along, carefully resetting each snare, I know I can never quite replicate his eyes for balance, his instincts for where the prey will cross the path. It's more than experience, it's a natural gift, like the way I can shoot an animal in most complete darkness and still take it down with 1 arrow. By the time I make it back to the fence that surrounds District 12, the sun is welling up. As always, I listen for movement, but there's no telltale hum of electric current running through the chain link. There hardly ever is, even though the thing is supposed to be charged full time. I wriggle through an opening at the bottom of the fence and come up in the meadow, just as a stone throw from my house, my old home. We still get up to it to keep it, since officially it's designed dwelling of my mother and sister. If I should drop dead right now, they would have to return to it. But at present, they will both live happily, installed in the new house in the Victor's village. And I am the only one who uses the squat little place where I was raised. To me, it's my real home. I go there now to switch my clothes, exchange my father's old jacket for my wool coat that always seems too tight in the shoulders, leave my soft-worn hunting boots for a pair of expensive machine-made boots that my mother thinks are more appropriate for someone of my status. I've already stoned my boots an arrow in the hollow log in the woods. Although time is ticking away, I allow myself a few minutes to sit in the kitchen. It has an abandoned quality with no fire and no heat, no cloth on the table. I mourned my old life here. We barely scraped by, but I knew where I fitted in. I knew the place was in the tightly interwoven fabric that my life was. I wish I could go back to it, because in retrospect, it seems so secure and compared with it now, when I am so rich and so famous and so hated by the authorities of the capital. A wailing at the back of the door demands my attention. I opened it and find Buttercup, Prin's scruffy old Tom Bear. Tomcat, sorry. He disliked the new house almost as much as I do, and always leaves it when my sister's at school. We've never been particularly fond of each other, but now we have this new bond. I let him in and feed him a chunk of beaver fat, and even rub him between his ears for a bit. You are hideous, you know that, right? I ask him. Buttercup nudges my hand before more petting. But we have to go. Come on, you. I scoop him up with one of my hands and grab my game bag with the other and haul them both out into the street. The cat springs free and disappears under a bush. The shoes pinches my toes, and as I crunch along the cinder streets, cutting down alleys and through the backyards, getting me to Gale's house in minutes. His mother, Hazel, sees me through the window, where she bent over to the kitchen sink. She dries her hands on her apron and disappears to meet me at the door. I like Hazel, respect her. The explosion that killed my father took out her husband as well, leaving her with 3 boys and a baby due any day. Less than a week after she gave birth, she was hunting the streets for work. The mines weren't an option, what with a baby to look after. But she managed to get laundry from some merchants in the town. At 14, Gale, the oldest of them all, became the main supporter of the family. He was already signed up for tessering, which entitled them to a merge supply of grain and oil to exchange for his entering his name extra times in the drawing to become a tribute. On top of that, even back then, he was a skilled trapper, but it wasn't enough to keep the family of 5 without Hazel working her fingers to the bone on the washboard. In winter, her hands got so red and cracked they bled, and the slightest provocation, steel wood if it hasn't had for a slave, my mother could co-Kent. But they are determined, Hazel and Gale, that the other boys, 12 years old Roy and 10 years old Vic, and the baby, 4 years old Posy, will never have let to sign up for tessery. Hazel smiled when she sees the game. She takes the beaver by the tail, feeling its weight. He's got to make a nice stew. Unlike Gale, she had no problem with the hunting arrangement. Good pelt too, I answer. It's comforting to hear with Gale. I weight the merits of the game, just as we have always have. She pours me a mug of herb tea, which I wrap my chilly fingers around gratefully. You know, when I get back from the tour, I was just thinking I might take Roy out with me sometimes after school and teach him to shoot. Hazel nods. That would be good. Gale means too, but he's only got Sundays, and I think he likes saving those for you. I can't stop the redness that floods my cheeks. Stupid, of course. Hardly anyone knows me better than Hazel. Knows that the bond I share with Gale. I am sure plenty of people assuring that we will eventually get married, even if I never gave it any thought. But that was before the games, before my fellow tribute, Peter McClark, announced he was madly in love with me,